Hey, what's up internet? It's Dan Fletcher here. Today's video is going to be quick and dirty. We're just going to look at setting up some tools that we're going to need for following along with the rest of this tutorial or this video series. So I just have a few things listed here. The first thing we're going to need is Visual Studio Code. That's the code editor that you've been seeing me use so far. To get there, you're just going to go code.visualstudio.com/download, and then if you're on Windows, you just click Windows, and it's just like basically pretty standard setup. And then once you have that downloaded, you can just type code and you should see the app pop up here. I'm going to open a new window, and this is going to be the code editor that we're going to use for the remainder of this series. Now, we're also going to be looking at using Git while we work. That's going to be in a later video. So there's going to be two things that we're going to want. And one thing is a command line that's better than the Windows CMD. In case you don't know what that is, that's the command prompt. This is a way to execute like simple commands on your computer, but from a command line, and it seems pretty intimidating when you're first starting out. I find specifically the Windows command prompt is even more intimidating because by default it's so ugly. The command line that I actually use is called conemu, and it's a command line emulator. You really don't have to know a whole lot to be able to use this, but it just makes your output a little prettier. Like you have some highlighting differences between like folders and things that are like files. Anyway, to get that far, the first thing that you have to download is Git. So you're just gonna go like just Google Git download, and I'll also leave a link in the description below, and then just click Windows. It should automatically recognize the operating system, and yeah, see, so it's giving me 64-bit. If it doesn't, just click which one works for your version of Windows, and then all the defaults is fine. You don't have to change any of the settings. Once you install Git, it will come with this app called Git Bash. And this is actually the terminal that we're going to be using. Conemu, you'll see the symbol up here is the same. So I just have conemu set to use the Git Bash command line. And then conemu, what it gives me is the ability to make tabs. So I can have multiple command line windows open at the same time, and they move together rather than having to manage more than one command line. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're only going to be using one window anyway. So if you like the look of Git Bash like this and that's cool with you, then you don't need to bother with conemu. I'm just going to suggest conemu because it's what I'm going to be using through the series. And so if you Google conemu downloads, you'll find a page like this. I'll also leave a link in the description below, and then you can just click the download link here. When you're running through the setup, you just select all the defaults, and the first time that you start up the app, it's going to ask you which command line you want to use, and you just select Git Bash, and then by default conemu will always open Git Bash on startup. And anytime you want to create a new console, you can still use your Windows command. So I can make a Windows command prompt window here, and this is just running in conemu. I can use PowerShell if you are familiar with PowerShell, right? This is a PowerShell window. When we get this far in this series, I'm gonna go over some very basics in the command line. We're not gonna really use the command line very much. The only reason we're going to use it is because we're going to be using Git. And this is the last thing that we're going to be using in the excuse me, in this series is GitHub. And GitHub, basically what we're going to be using this for, if I can find a quick example, maybe this. GitHub is what we're going to use to host our website at the end of this series. Just have to find, okay. GitHub IO. I'm pretty sure I have this hosted on GitHub. Oh no, I don't. Oh, not github.com, GitHub IO. Oh, right. Okay, here we go. I always forget. Yeah, so this is like a landing page that I made for my school Slack channel. And this is just actually hosted on GitHub. And if I were to buy a domain name, I can point my domain name to this, and like, let's say I called it uopeopleslack.io or something like that. You would type uopeopleslack.io in your browser, and then this is the page that would come up. So GitHub Pages is a pretty sweet service. And it's free, which is why we're going to use it. The other advantage to using Git is that you're basically going to be able to go back in your code if there's something that you want to undo. It's not really going to matter too much for the kind of website that we're going to make in this series, but Git is definitely a handy tool to use. And using Git is what allows you to post your code onto GitHub, and then GitHub pretty much becomes like your portfolio, because everything that you make is going to be on there. And if you're looking for a job as a web developer, potential employers are going to go to GitHub to see projects that you've been working on, and they're going to be able to see your source code and get an idea of what kind of developer you are. That pretty much is everything that we're going to cover in this video today. Basically just getting these 3 tools installed. In the next video, when we actually tackle making a web page, we're going to cover a little bit more about Visual Studio and how I have it configured so that your environment is set up exactly the way that mine is. Don't forget to comment, like, or subscribe. And as always, cheers.